Greetings and welcome to this episode of My Spectrum Life. My name is Jessica and I'm an autism mom. And tonight I'm here with my co-host, Kelsey.
Hey, I am a registered behavior technician, and I hope everyone is doing well. I'm excited to be here.
And I see you've got a friend in the back with you.
I do. That's my dog. With everything going around, I hope everybody's doing all right, not just with the COVID-19 and staying healthy, but also those who are affected with tornadoes. My dog being one of them is very afraid. We did have a tornado touchdown about 2 to 5 miles from us. And last night, because of my dog and woke us up shaking, she actually alerted us with what was going on with the weather, and just God bless.
Thank God for our animals, because sometimes they can let us know some of the craziest things. I mean, I know that my dog can, I've got 2 dogs and they're usually closed up with the kids upstairs to be quiet. We're hoping, but I have a hound that is deathly afraid of thunderstorms, and we have had, we were actually on alert as well here for some systems of tornadoes, and they actually went south of us into Mississippi, which I've read some of those were fatal. So we grieve with those families who have lost, but we know that we're going to get through these times.
That's right.
That is for sure. So we just want to encourage all of you. And right now, we're going to get into something we kind of wanted to, since it's Autism Awareness or Acceptance Month. We wanted to make sure and touch on some things you might see those with autism exhibit, so that you can understand what's going on and understand what might be happening, and understand what to do around that. So there's a lot of behaviors. So tell us about these behaviors and why they happen with those who have autism and what's behind all that.
So to kind of stop and refresh everybody's memory, a behavior is a form of communication. So no matter what's going on, a behavior is trying to communicate with you. With that being said, stimming and help me, Jess,
perseverating.
Thank you. I actually struggle with that word.
That's the clinical term.
Is actually a form of communication. It is a behavior, but it's a form of communication. With that being said, there's always a function. What is the purpose of the stimming or the
perseveration?
There it is. Thank you. What is the purpose? What is the function? There is, as we were doing our studies, I remember talking to you about there is disagreements about what is internally causing it. But outwardly, somebody can see what the function of the behavior. For example, let's say you're stimming with, you're constantly picking at your nails like this, and it only comes whenever you have test anxiety. Or taking a test. Well, the function of the behavior is you're trying to calm yourself down. So you always have to look at the function of the behavior, even though we don't know what really causes it internally. We can just address what is the behavior communicating? What is the function of this paper?
Okay, so I actually am doing this and picking at my finger right now, but I can stop.
You can at any time. Right.
How is that different for me versus my son who's on the spectrum?
If you know when to stop, but let's say, for example, like your son, he knows how to do this. There's times when we were doing online schooling with him, and we asked him, hey, why don't you just put your hands down? You need to stop picking at him. And he's taking his test. Full-blown meltdown. Full-blown, like, what do you mean I have to stop? What? I'm trying to take this test. What? It totally disrupts what they're trying to do. And it's the only way they know how to cope. They don't sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing where we're very self-aware that we know what we're doing. Okay, this is okay. I can minimize it. I know how to help myself out, when to use it and when not to use it, as when stemming, like hand flapping, for example, walking up and down a hallway, looking out and not making eye contact with is considered stemming as well.
Right.
Is always that they don't even realize they're doing. They don't
Yeah.
realize that it's not typical, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I mean, and that's something that we've got to understand, that we need to just let them do it.
exactly.
Unless it's, I mean, and until Curtis, I mean, Curtis will pick at his fingernails and stuff until he bleeds. And so I have to have him stop because it is harmful to him.
Right.
But, you know, and if he has to get up and start pacing, it's okay. You know, that's one of the things that's beneficial for us, more beneficial for us and for him for doing the homeschool, the online virtual schooling, is because if he needs to take a break and walk up and down and pace for a little bit, it's totally fine. He can do that and it's not a problem.
Right.
Whereas in the typical gen ed class, he wouldn't be allowed to do that.
Right.
That's where they do things like, I've seen, I guess it's part of, it would be a sensory type thing to help with that for an OT order, like putting exercise bands around the feet of the desks so that they can stretch those in order to get that that stimulation that they need. Curtis also does a lot of noises, crazy noises, I mean, nonsensical noises. There's a technical term for that one, and I can't say that one. Echolia or something like. Yeah. Sometimes the medical technical term is a little bit difficult to say, so we just leave that there. I can tell that, you know, if his noises are getting louder, that means he's more stressed, especially if he's having a day where it's really difficult for him to use his words. There are kids that cannot use words. So if you're around somebody and you notice that the noises that they're making are, you know, sometimes they can just be soft noises underneath, and you can tell that they're okay. But if they start getting louder or something, usually that means they're getting more stressed, and that means it's Curtis is getting more stressed. Have you experienced any of that?
I have, just throughout my years of teaching and throughout the years of therapy, I have. Most of the time it's when they're in big crowds. They can't control the outside noise, so they escalate because you got to imagine yourself walking into a coffee shop, Jess, and all of a sudden you pick on the clicking of the fan, the clicking of the coffees, and then everybody talking, and everything is at once, and your brain cannot pinpoint what it is. So it's just coming at you like a tidal wave. And so what happens is it's a sensory overload sometimes. And so with kids with autism, like I've seen them in the crowds like that, they're like, okay, I'm going to block this out and I'm going to have a noise cancellation and I'm going to calm myself down by the escalating of a constant loud hum or repeated sound. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense. And sometimes you're like, why? And then you stop and you think, oh, wait. And so that's part of stemming that is acceptable, but not acceptable. If it becomes to the point, let's say you're in church or there are times where you can't have that. That's where ABA, OT, and PT and some of these therapies can actually not get rid of it, but help lessen some of the effects. For example, noise cancellation headphones. What you were talking about with OT, some of the stemming that they're doing, hand flapping, or some of that might just be, I need sensory input. I need deep hugs, or the constant movement of getting up and walking around and helping, again, anxiety. A lot of times we go back to anxiety.
Oh yeah, so prevalent with autism.
It is. So I have seen it. I really have. And sometimes just the walking over. I mean, I went a couple times with the church with some of my clients, and I just literally just kind of put the hand like, hey, and just gave the hand a squeeze, and it was just more than enough. So even
Mhm.
we do this with our normal children or everyday life that you encompass with a friend. So some of these techniques can even work
Mhm.
with a kid with autism, and you don't even realize you're doing it.
Right.
I love it.
Exactly. And sometimes it's good to know that you can do something simple like that. And always, if you are in a situation like you're at church and you have an autistic child come into your care, um, don't be afraid to ask the parent,
Mhm.
what can I do to help them? What is best to allow? Like when Curtis was younger, he couldn't, it was hard for him to stay seated during children's church. There were harder chairs. And so what we would do is we would allow him to get up, but he could walk in the back of the classroom behind all the students. If he needed to get up and pace and walk back and forth, we'd let him do that, but it had to be behind everybody else. And so that was acceptable, and it made it, a lot easier if he could do that behind everybody. He wasn't disturbing anybody, and the other students could pay attention to what was being taught.
Right.
If that's something that they need to do in church, or say a scouting program or
And
4-H or something like that, go ahead and let them do that. Give them that space in the back that they can walk back and forth so that they can deal. They're still getting every word that you are
Mhm.
saying.
Mhm.
Oh,
They do.
you'd be surprised.
Oh, yeah.
Curtis would be walking back and forth in the middle of children's church, making quiet noises. We'd start asking questions over the story. He'd get them right, every single one. Nobody else would answer, but he'd get every one of them. So, you never know how much, they really are and can get what you're saying if you
Right.
allow them to do some of these things that help calm them down to a lesser degree in a place where it's not going to disturb everybody
Mhm.
else.
And then what Curtis was doing is called, kinesthetic learning.
Mhm.
There is a movement and there's a whole bunch of studies, but the more you move as you're teaching, the more they're interacting and moving, the more they're actually going to remember. So there's a
Mhm.
fun educational study that actually supports not only with kids with autism to help alleviate some of this, but also actually does help them study. So
Wow.
the more you do movements, for example, let's say you're working angles. Okay, show me a right angle or show me an obtuse angle, and you do it with the arms, they're actually going to remember it a lot more than if you're just sitting still.
I should have done that with Nikki last week when we were doing angles.
But it's called kinesthetic learning is what it's called.
Okay, I'll have to look into that because that could be helpful for either of them. Although coordinate plane numbers is not too easy to do. Yeah, some of that is just not going to translate very
No, some
well.
of it's not, but some of the or even
Mhm.
just getting up and jogging and running and if you want, I can show you some other different cool tricks that I've actually incorporated with music, with dance moves, with my own
Wow, that's
class.
cool.
So,
That's great. That's great. Okay, so that's
stimming.
stimming.
Mhm.
So, and there are so many. Oh, and the
Oh,
one
there
thing we
is.
need to make clear is there are as many STEMs as there are people with autism. So, when you've seen one child with autism, you've seen one child with autism and their own brand of stimming.
Yep.
It's not going to be the same for everybody.
Well, you might have 2 with hand flapping, but their function of that behavior is completely different. They're
Right.
totally different. So you may hear, "Oh, well, what do you mean different kind of stems?" Okay, XYZ can all 3 have hand flapping and making noises, but XYZ, their function of their behavior is
Right.
completely different. And it's
Mhm.
all based on who they are. And that goes back to being their personality. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to deal with autism. Sometimes it just goes back to who they are. Who
Right.
are they? What intrigues them? What helps them cope?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So another thing is that perseveration, that big clinical word we were saying. So there are two different definitions that we want to bring. So one of them is getting stuck on an activity, spending an inappropriate amount of time doing and redoing something.
Mhm.
It's also perseveration may also refer to the obsessive and highly selective interests of individuals on the autism spectrum. So putting those two together can help you understand some of these behaviors, perseverations. Well, go ahead and talk about those lovely perseverations.
All right. So I'm going to start with a scenario. So
Okay.
imagine that you have a child and it is his birthday party. And leading up to his birthday party, he knows everything about all different breeds of dogs. And he knows every minute and small detail about all these breeds. So for his birthday, he goes, I want an encyclopedia of breeds of dogs. Okay, so he gets it. And it's his first present that he opens up. Guess what? He is so excited. He turns around, doesn't even look at anybody else. He doesn't even open up any other gift, and he is stuck on talking about the dogs. And so eventually, hey, you talk to him. Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you got the encyclopedia, but let's keep moving forward and continue opening up gifts and saying your thank yous and doing the polite thing. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, every other word is, did you know about these dogs? Did you do this about dogs? Hey, do you know you can do this? And the whole rest of the hour of the party, they're talking about nothing about dogs. And that's perseveration.
Perseveration, yes.
That's a tongue twister.
Yes, it is. That's
and
when
you're
getting that's getting stuck.
It is getting stuck. And it's on a loop. Stuck. And so if you see your child or you see somebody out in public and all they say is, Thomas the Train was a big one for you with Curtis.
Oh, yes. When he first, at 18 months old, we got him his first Thomas the Train, and it had a little button. Mm-hmm. And it said something. I don't even remember what it said. He would push that button incessantly over and over and over again until we finally, one night when we put him down, it's okay. You can take the batteries out and just say the batteries went dead and we don't have any more and there's no batteries ever. Or just tell your kid it broke.
It just broke.
It's okay because that's going to alleviate your stress. Mm-hmm. But we had Thomas the Train everything. Yep. I still have it, the bedding, a backpack. We had toys. We have tons of trains and tracks. He'd spend hours building his tracks, putting them together and running them around and trying to get him to go this way and that way and watching the episodes. Mm-hmm. For a while, if we went anywhere and did anything without creaky cranky, he was throwing a temper tantrum, which actually I thought it was a temper tantrum, but it was actually a meltdown.
Right.
Because that was something he needed to help him cope when he was going places.
Mm-hmm. It is. So, and what it is he was caught on a loop. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for him to process that there's anything else that is different that can help me cope. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot with ASD because there is times where you and everybody in their life gets obsessive about something. Either it's about a TV show that you're watching, but it's never to the extent of I can't put it down. I can't walk away from it. Right. And kids with ASD that do
perseverate.
Yes. A lot of times therapy, ABA, OT, or speech are going to help you move from it because it's something that is inhibiting them to have a natural life. Because sometimes they get so stuck in their loop, they forget that they have to eat. They forget that they have to bathe. Some of these self-help skills that they don't think. And the best part about it is that they don't even realize that they're even obsessive over it. They don't even realize that there's a world outside this. There's the world time keeps going. So there's a lot of therapies for that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have seen. We haven't gotten our ABA in place since we moved yet. And I actually am working on that. Got some good news on that today. So that is a positive and going to be helpful for us. But I know a lot of people in his youth group because it's scary to think that, he's almost 12 years old and he's in a youth group, 6th grade. Um, there's 2 things that are his big things right now: Godzilla and Minecraft.
Godzilla has never walked away.
No.
No.
No, ever since he saw something with Godzilla on it and knew that it was a movie or something, it's just been like, he loves Godzilla. He cannot wait until all these movies come out. I mean, he's already told us that he will be so upset if he can't go to the theaters to see the new movie that's coming out. And I have no idea, nor have when, if that's been pushed back or whatever, because, our whole entire world and the schedule for movies coming out has been disrupted, not just movies, but everything in life has been disrupted. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting, I guess, a check, back into real world for him. But we'll have to figure out, that's one of those things is when you have to bring your child out of a perseveration, you have to do it very, very carefully so that you don't trigger a meltdown.
Right. And some of the ways that I've seen and observed you do when I was working with is you responded with empathy, said, "Hey, I understand you're talking about this. Did you know about this and this?" And you naturally get him off the topic. You've also help him make connections. So like, for example, yes, you can watch this once you do this, this, and this. And by that time, once he's done something else, he's like, okay, I'm good to go. And the other one that you've really done that I've seen that I really like that ABA will teach your son if you ever do have ABA therapy or your child, is self-monitoring. Okay.
Yes.
Am I doing this too much? How do I scale it back? How do I get myself unstuck? And I've seen Curtis grow. Just the stories that you've heard and the stories that I've seen him grow. He's like, "Hey, Mom, I'm getting stuck," or "Hey, Mom," and he actually tells you, I'm going in that place. "Mom, can you help me out?" And he does. He's caught it.
He's caught it. But one of the things that is so difficult with those who have loved ones who are on the spectrum is if there is any sort of anything that is disrupts the schedule, the routine, it can cause sort of a regression. I don't, in our experience, it's caused quite a bit of a regression. And so we are in the process of, trying to get back to normal things. I've had to go back to making visual schedules, making sure everything is out, although I have a difficult time using those visual schedules as we're, still got boxes piled up everywhere.
Right.
We're still working on getting everything situated, but it's okay if they have to go back to visual schedules sometimes. Just keep those things. We've had to go back and, I thought we were past the token boards. Turns out we're not. Because I'm using where we get 5 little tokens and then you get to do an activity. Well, I took one of the one that I found and got off of Teachers Pay Teachers, and I made little things for, okay, once you get 5, you can take a such and such a break and a such and such a break. And I have and I've even made like a ton of these things as to what the rewards can be, so that, when the time comes, they could, my kids could choose, but there would be like a way that I could say, okay, we're not choosing X, Y, and Z because it's not appropriate time for it. And sometimes you just have to go back to those basic things, revamp them and use them again to help them regulate, to help them not, perseverate, to get off and help them not to get stuck on all those things that they can get stuck on.
Right, exactly. And so in a lot of ways you use flexible thinking. Like, hey, and empathy all in once. I understand this is going on, so I'm going to utilize our tool belt that we have and help you cope in a better manner than regressing. And
Mhm.
so props to you, because I know that's hard for parents. I know it's hard in
Mhm.
the educational system. So
Yeah,
I just want to give a shout out to all the parents who are dealing with this, because as you said, COVID has disrupted a lot. So you're going to see a lot more
everything.
stimming. You're going to see a lot more of
Mhm.
these preservation.
Well, they're preserving themselves by perseverating, I guess we could say.
Sorry. Fun fact, I had speech growing up, so I still stem on certain words or mess up on certain words. But
Mhm.
I just want to give a shout out to those who are dealing with those kids and can't get a break.
Yeah.
So I do think that your words of encouragement are phenomenal. Go back to
Mhm.
basics. It's okay.
Don't don't ever throw out those tools
Dude,
that your
no.
therapists give you. Keep them filed in a place because you may have to pull them back out to,
Mhm.
like, I still have, visual schedules. And so I'll go back and I'll look at the different visual schedules and say, okay, what did we do back then? Okay, how can I modify it to make a new appropriate visual schedule?
Right.
Just because you're going to have to do that. I'm going to have to
Mhm.
do that from time to time. And I have just kept them because I thought, I might want to go back and look at them as a reference, and I'm finding that I have. So yeah, if you have those things, keep them. Or, at the very least, take a picture of it with your phone or something and keep a picture file of what it was so you can refer to it if it's not something that you can actually physically keep,
Right.
because then you can just at least refer to it. Keep a file on your computer of past, all these different tools that you have that you find that you think is going to help you
Mhm.
um, in the in the future, or just something to reference.
Mhm.
Um,
And then visual schedules are not just with pictures. It sometimes could be a list if they're middle school and up, or they have the appropriate means to read just a list.
mhm.
We make lists. How many times do you make a visual
Oh my
schedule going
goodness.
down the grocery store? That's a list. It's a visual schedule. Like, okay, I need this, this, and this. And
Yeah,
it's a reminder.
yeah,
Um, but a visual schedule is not just with pictures. It's a
right.
visual, like, this is what I'm doing for today. This is
Mhm,
what we are doing. And sometimes that in itself can eliminate anxiety, which if your kid is stimming due to
mhm.
anxiety, guess what? You just help them cope. And you're also teaching them ways how to cope with their own anxiety. So now
Right.
you're teaching them and lessening some of the stemming as well.
Mhm.
So it kind of works hand in hand
Yeah,
once you understand the function of a behavior.
yeah. And always get their input when you're making things like that,
Mhm.
because I had found at one point in time, I tried to make a list that went like 1, 2, 3, 4, across.
Right.
No, did not work.
Nope.
Curtis was very much, it had to be on top of each other and straight down. And it has to be, the boxes and everything have to be justified
Hide.
to the
Mhm.
left hand of the side of the paper,
Mhm.
or all in the middle. It can't, be all over the place. It has to be straight, because for him, visually, it got too convoluted and messed up.
Right.
So be aware of those things. If they're not following certain ways or certain things, watch what they're doing. And if they start stimming, if you give them a visual schedule, then ask what's going on, and what would help them
Mhm.
better use it.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, because they're more than happy to tell you.
I'll tell you.
Um, they don't usually, I mean, they'll just be blunt and tell you
Yeah,
right up.
even the nonverbal ones, they'll either go into more of a protesting scream, or
Mhm,
they'll point. Like, they will
mhm.
tell you, you don't have to use words. And that's what's the coolest thing, is you know your child best,
Right.
and you know how to read your child. So
Mhm,
when we say ask them, we're not just saying, "Oh, they can tell you," but it's, you know, your kid and what each scream means. For example, if they're nonverbal, what each hit means if they hit. Any of
mhm.
these nonverbal behaviors, you know your kid and how to read it. Just like if you had a baby, you know which one is a hungry cry and when I need
Right.
to change a diaper. There's a difference. And the same thing with these kids who are nonverbal. So when you ask a
Mhm.
nonverbal, if you have a nonverbal child and you ask them, they'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
They will tell you.
There's so many forms of communication that we are
Yes.
unaware of, that we just I don't know, we may be, like, unaware that our brains are processing,
Mhm.
that we don't, know that we have to be able to teach,
Right.
and or that we just automatically get, but to, people on the spectrum, it's not there, and so there are ways to help figure out what the limited communication, even if it's limited to grunts and,
Right. Exactly.
screams and such, you can still understand them.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times, there are those who are nonverbal that use sign language.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're still just because they can't. That's one of the things I think that probably is an irritation to a lot of parents of those that are nonverbal is to think that they're not capable of doing anything. They're in there.
Oh, they are.
They are so in there. I mean, imagine if you were trapped in your body and make
Right.
you couldn't form words.
Right.
I mean, so many people talk about coming out of a coma and they say, they could hear every single word that a person said to them, but they couldn't reply. And
Right.
how, tough it was for them not to be able to reply. Well, that's what it is for them.
Mhm.
Um, and, I get on a soapbox at times because um, for the person with autism, our world is an alien planet,
Right.
and when they let you in,
They let you in.
they let you in, and it's a privilege.
It is a
It is a
privilege.
privilege.
It
Um,
is.
and as a parent, when you see your child letting somebody else in, like a therapist to help them, it's a relief. It is such a relief to say, okay, great. They're going to be able to learn something and get that from this person, and it's going to be okay.
Right.
And so that's I don't know, that's one of the cool things that I saw that Curtis did with you is he let you in.
He did.
So
I still talk to him from time to time. He
yeah.
still, was it the kids' Facebook message? Oh, he'll message me all the time.
Hmm.
Still talk to him.
Yeah.
He's a good person. I absolutely love who he is, and I love who
Hmm.
he's becoming. I
Right. Right.
really do. He's growing up to be a good kid.
And if we'll just step back and try to understand those with autism, we will be amazed at how awesome these kids are,
Oh,
how
yeah.
much they overcome on a daily
On a
basis.
daily basis,
Oh
every
my
day.
goodness.
I mean, taking it back to stemming and the P word.
Perseverating.
Thank you. Um, I mean, can you imagine being aware and being taught through therapies when you can and do it, and that you're constantly thinking about, can I do it now? Can I do it here? And you're constantly picking everything that you're talking about. Can I talk here? Can I wait, you just did this. What does this mean? Can you That's draining. So by the end of the day, they're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's there every day. I mean, just by glimpses of who I've talked to and what I've seen, I
Mhm.
could never speak for them. Um,
Mhm.
but we can talk about their outward behaviors and their functions of their
Mhm.
behaviors.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I love
Well, I am so glad that we were able to have this time with everybody, and I hope that you've enjoyed the show. Make sure that if you have been watching on YouTube,
Mhm.
that you like and subscribe to the channel.
Yep.
If you were watching on Facebook, give us a thumbs up and make sure you turn on your notifications for both YouTube and Facebook so you know that when we're going to be on. Also, you can catch us on Instagram at My Spectrum Life as well as Twitter at My Spectrum Life 1. I know we haven't been as daily on our Instagram posts. We're working on trying to pull that together and get back out there and doing that a lot more. Just so you know, the next My Spectrum Life will be on April 20th at 7 Central, 8 Eastern time. We'd love to have you join us. And I think, did I cover it all?
If you have any questions or you want to cover a topic that we have yet to discuss, please email us at info@myspectrumlife.com or just shoot us a comment on Facebook or our Instagram or Twitter, because we would love to hear from y'all.
Yes, we would. And with that, remember, with faith, love, and fidget toys. And fidget toys. Oh, man. Make sure you have plenty of fidget toys. We're going to make it. Good night.